What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stokastic coming to you with my PGA DFS first look for the Honda Classic. Hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell as we get going. Goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. You become a prize whenever great DFS content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. We just had a really exciting last 2 weeks in Scottsdale, out here in LA. And now we're going to Florida. We're going to just outside Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens. It's the Honda Classic, and this field, it is something to behold. But you know what? There's a lot of money to be made, so I'm not going to complain. I think we should just get right to it, shall we? This is Prize Picks. They're the lovely sponsor of our program. Check them out. Get $100 first match deposit bonus when you sign up using promo code Stokastic. Really great stuff that they have going right now. If you take a look at their PGA stuff that just got updated, absolutely things you love to see. Sung J M going up against SH Kim there. Pretty interesting. Birdies are better matchup. This golf course, it's tough. It's brutal. I'm going to talk you through the ins and outs, but you've got birdie or better that is set up right now. They're going to have a lot more options, specific holes in terms of 4.5 over under on some of the par fives. They do that a lot. They'll have individual matchups. You're going to want to be checking out all of the great stuff at Prize Picks. Again, up to a $100 first match deposit bonus using promo code Stokastic. Let's get to it, shall we? This is your top golfers tool per usual. This is where I start. Then we go to Fantasy Cruncher. I just teach you about groups or things that you can do. I will say, looking at the forecast here, right from the get-go, looks pretty good. We have seen some carnage here at Palm Beach Gardens at the Honda Classic in the past. You get the bear trap. Do not drink every time you hear the words bear trap this weekend. You will not make it through Thursday. That is for sure. Or just don't watch the telecast because it's good. Well, this is a fun golf tournament to watch because those who don't know, PGA National is a beast. Yeah, it's short, not very long, par 70, but it has tons of teeth because there is water all over the place. But I'm looking at the forecast. You can go to windfinder.com. That's usually the easiest way to go about living your life. I would show it on the screen, but I don't want to share anything I'm not supposed to. So there we go. Thursday, looks like the wind only gets up to about 12 in the afternoon, right around 4 p.m. Is going to be around 82 degrees both days there, right around 9-10. A little bit more mild there in the afternoon on Friday, but nothing that really creates a tee time stack that we need to look at. Tee times aren't even out yet as of Tuesday morning recording this, so something to maybe just do by default every single week. If you want to have a small allocation going that direction, you kind of know what to do, but I am much more interested in looking at leverage. I had it grouped by positive leverage. Let's group it by salary here. And again, all of these great columns, this is one of the best tools that we have at Stokastic, period. Not just for PGA DFS golf content, but you have ownership. And look at this, 43% coming in on Sung J M right now. Minwoo Lee, surprisingly enough, 32.1%. Haven't seen him played in the States yet this season, but dude could be very good at golf and we might want to be invested. This Padraig Harrington thing has me just disturbed. He came from a senior tour event last week, and now he's playing in Florida, his kind of adopted state. You can say that about Shane Lowry and a lot of PGA pros that all live just outside the Jupiter, Florida, or in the Jupiter, Florida area. That's weird. If you've been watching Netflix, you are familiar with Jupiter, Florida. That seems like every single guy is from this area. But looking at the top of the board, we're getting tons of negative leverage on Sung J M, but you can't overlook 28.2% optimal percentage. That is just what he turns out as optimal. That isn't even including the number of times he can show up in a winning lineup with like a top 20, with a top 15. Just ends up being an ancillary piece of your lineup. So I think when you look at this, this is one of the bigger numbers we've seen all season long. We have a very weak field. I mean, look at these top priced players. We have Sung J M. We have Shane Lowry, number 2, also from the area. We'll talk about him a lot today. Chris Kirk, 9,900. Shout out him. I know he's battled a lot of demons in the past. Love to see him playing good golf overall the last year plus, and now has a salary to go with it. Billy Horschel, not in form, but boy, is he expensive, and we know the Florida Gator likes to play some golf down there, so going to be interesting. But let's start here. If I'm not going to be clicking on Sung J M, Shane Lowry is kind of the dude that I am gearing towards here at 10-4. He has the second most amount of positive leverage. That's generally going to be what happens when you have somebody pulling as much ownership as Sung J M is, 43.2% ownership, as opposed to looking at this optimal number, 17% next to 12.7% ownership. if you give me this every single time, I take it. I do. And I understand the win percentage is a little bit different in our projections, about a 5% difference, but that's more than a 2-to-1 ratio is what I'm getting at. So when you have the win percentage and the ownership there, the optimal percentage, I feel far more comfortable starting some of my major single entry lineups with Shane Lowry. Now, the question everybody's going to have, can I play both of them together? Well, we'll talk through that scenario at the very end when we build out a single entry team. I've been playing a couple of these the last few weeks. Hopefully you've been tailing a couple of these plays. Last week, Romco, Max Homa, that worked out very nicely, 1-2. Too bad I had Jack Diddley Squat to go with them. So that was an unfortunate series of events, but shout out my dude Max Homa, just playing fantastic golf. Love to see it. Southern California represent. All right, let's talk other negatively leveraged players here. Minwoo Lee. A lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with him, coming from New Zealand, I believe it is. But he's had some really nice finishes over in Europe, kind of everywhere. I mean, the guy's an absolute stud. He hasn't necessarily shown it here at the PGA Tour level yet. I mean, he's had a lot of missed cuts when he came over to America there, but he's had some really nice form. You can go box score watching if you'd like to do such things over on DK, but the Australian is what he is. So he is not a Kiwi. I apologize. I'm sure that pissed somebody off somewhere. I don't really care. Let's be serious. But looking at the Hero Dubai Classic T13, that's nice. Abu Dhabi finished T2 there. The Honda Australian Open, third there. Fortinet, the T4 there at the PGA Championship in Australia. Pretty wild. Nice series of events there for him. Good start to the season. I like him a lot, but that ownership, just people like to play the new shiny toy in PGA DFS. And I suppose if he's going to pull this kind of ownership when it's all said and done, going to be hard for me to get to him in like a large allocation. Oop, was starting to fast forward there. Going to be hard for me to get to a large allocation of him with this kind of negative leverage. Boy, oh boy, I hope I'm wrong about that, because he is going to be somebody that is going to be on my betting card, but going to be tough. I'm hoping this number comes down here before Thursday. This Padraig Harrington thing again, once again, he played in a senior tour event last time around. He's been in good shape. He was put on a ball striking clinic in that senior tour event. You know, I was just on the couch, just going through golf withdrawals after watching the awesome Genesis, and was watching some late night highlights of him, Bernard Longer going toe to toe. Freddie Couples made like a triple to kind of knock himself out of that one. Nobody cares about the senior tour event. You care about this event and making ourselves some money. This is a lot of ownership coming in on Patty Harrington. I know he's won majors. I know he's good, but he's also over 50 years old. And do we really? This kind of reminds me of the Steve Stricker at the John Deere Classic kind of situation. Maybe I get myself to a little bit, but this just seems a little borderline unnecessary. And lastly, Jaeger Bombs. How about this dude? 7,800. Nice to see him actually show up for him when I stopped rostering him. Really nice of you, sir. Like, why does that keep happening? But, you know, that's just PGA DFS golf. You got to understand there's going to be massive swings there. And for the most part, I see somebody like Jaeger who has really found some form again around the green. It was what his elite superpower was coming off the Korn Ferry Tour. 5th in that category amongst the entire field over his last 50 rounds. But I also like some of the ball striking numbers we've seen from him. He's 31st in strokes gained ball striking. Again, a weaker field event, so this is going to be a little bit skewed compared to other events like actual fields. But I think that's one piece of chalk that I might intertwine into some of my lineups. Minwoo Lee, I'm going to have a tough time saying completely no to it. And then Thomas Dietrich, that's one last guy who's just pulling enough of an optimal percentage where I want to get to a little bit there at 9K. Don't know if I feel comfortable starting some of the builds, but because of this golf course with all the water around, I mean, Sepp Straka won this thing for God's sakes last year. Oh, speaking of, let's go to the positive leverage here. Sepp Straka there, 8,500. Oh boy, he went out of the middle of absolutely nowhere last year. He went not really toe-to-toe with Daniel Berger. Daniel Berger had a meltdown for the ages, but that's, again, something that can happen at this golf course. 8,500 is a misprice for somebody who's had his form. It's been horrendous here of late, off the tee game especially. 102nd amongst this field. Dude's been losing 0.3 strokes per round in that category so far this season. I'm not super enthusiastic about it, but I have to invest a little bit in there with the positive leverage. Former champion, we'll see. Wild to see Webb Simpson at 7,300 and still have zero interest it's been really nice to not be on that, but we're starting to talk about 7,300 Webb Simpson as you start getting to the Bermuda grass types. He comes from North Carolina. Maybe you can find a little something, but I'm far more inclined to gear in and focus on Callum Tarrant, the Englishman. He's somebody that I've been kind of just intertwining in my lineups a lot here of late. Hasn't really been all that fruitful in terms of results, but I still like the pedigree. I still think there's enough ability there. He missed the cut at the Genesis and the Phoenix Open, which shouldn't surprise anybody, but the Farmers Insurance got a T25 out of him there, just made the cut at the AT&T. Nothing really all that impressive, but I do think he's going to be a decent enough player, and you do see some players just need a little bit of time to get the motor sputtering. So Callum Tarrant, somebody that I'm also gearing in on. Hit the like button as we move ourselves over to this lovely photo of these fine gentlemen. Look at this. Insider access, 50% off your first week. You can sign up for that in the video description box below. I recommend checking it out. We have NBA in full swing. That's kind of what I've been covering a lot. I am really, really gearing up for the PGA streaks as we get closer to the PGA, to the Players Championship, to the Masters. If you've ever heard of that, seems like an important golf tournament. We got Ben Raza covering that, Aton as well. A lot of golf guys there too, but we got Lofty, of course, covering everything. We've got Isaiah there. Really, really sharp dude in the NASCAR streets. Come check it out. Greg Ehrenberg futures in every regard. Join our Discord below. Cool. We are back to this screen. We are going to Fantasy Cruncher, and I've taught a lot of people how to use groups here the last couple of weeks. Really enjoy the DMs and talking through different things. Let's talk about some ownership restraints here. So we're going to just run the optimal here at the given moment. I want to just hit crunch on one lineup. I got to branch this up, don't I? There we go. We're going to run one lineup using Stokastic projections, not myself. They're identical at the moment. Here we are. So as you can see, there is a ton of ownership going to Sungjae Im. Aaron Wise, a piece who, just a ball striker. I expect this number to come up. I think he is going to be projected for a lot of ownership come Thursday. Lee Hodges, Hayden Buckley. I mean, woof. SH Cam, that's going to be another one that might absolutely destroy me here this week. But we have a ton of ownership coming in. 120.8% ownership projection. Pretty easy to say, though, that when there's only two insanely owned golfers at the moment, Sungjae Im, Minwoo Lee, because they're both expensive, you're naturally going to kind of be avoiding them. But I think there are some ways that we can build some unique Sungjae Im lineups, because I'm not going to be fading him in 150 lineups at 10-7 as a guy with a 28% optimal percentage. Am I going to be below the field? Possibly. I think that's definitely kind of what I'm leaning towards and what I normally lean towards when you look at elite players that, get in a weaker field and you're trying to find ways to get different. But this golf course, we saw him miss the cut there last season. Missed the cut. So I think it is definitely in play, but create new group. We're just simply going to add Sungjae. We're going to make him the key player here. So whenever a key player is utilized, there you go. See, you just hit the little key next to him, and then he shows up. But no other players have been added to this group. Well, part of it is that everybody that you would be pairing him up with, you're going to be rotating through a lot of cheap pieces. So I think it's very important to kind of lock in a few players that are going to be low owned, that you want to have some type of exposure to. Now, SH Kim, he's going to be a dude that I definitely want to get to. Again, I wish we could get, there it is. Perfect. So we have this, the ownership projection on a couple of them as you go over to this column. I'm going to go to Davis Riley, and I'm going to add him into this group. Sub 10% for Davis Riley. Smooth swinging Davis Riley. Probably overachieved last time coming up around this area. Good friends with Jordan Spieth, but a decent enough player. And you get hot with the irons here at the Honda Classic, and you avoid some of the water, specifically at the Bear Trap. Go ahead and drink. There are opportunities to make yourselves some birdies. And Davis Riley, it's just a guy who needs to be a little bit better off the tee, and we have an opportunity to see him start to find some form again here. So Davis Riley at 7,400, he's a piece that I really want to get to. I'm going to say, there are a number of them. I'm not going to list off absolutely everybody. Will be here for years. But Danny Willett at 8.4% in this kind of a field, I'm comfortable clicking that name. You have another guy, Justin Sue, sitting there, sub 10%. And Sepp Straka, we talked about him earlier. Now, if you're only going to be playing in like the $3 20 max, let's say that you want to find some kind of a way of capping Sung JM. There are other places you could make that kind of utilized, but for the most part, I would just group and just say, you know what, I'm going to play at least 2 from this grouping, guys that I'm comfortable with. You can add far more to your pool, of course. And I'm going to build out 10. Let's just say that I want to have 50-50 exposure. I have Sung JM in like a 20 max setting. I'm going to put him in 10 lineups there. Obviously, he's in every single one. I'm going to add a little bit of randomness because, again, who doesn't like to be random? It's pretty much everything I do at this company. But here we are. Randomness added. Just added 125 for the hell of it. Get ourselves a nice little grouping there. And then, again, there we go. Let's lock in Sung Jae. Just be like, all right, I'm going to play him in half my lineups here. In my 20 max, I'm going to play him in 10 there. All right. And then I'm going to unclick the lock button, and I am going to remove him from the pool for the next 10. So I'm going to hit 10 more teams. So it'll go back to the projections, but see how Sung Jae is going to be at 50% now? This is just a small way that you can make a big difference as you are starting to get intertwined with the 20 max. A lot of people play that $3 over on DK. It's a really great tournament. You should be getting in that every single week. This is a great way to kind of break up your exposures and get a little bit better. There are a lot more things that can go into it when you start factoring in the ownership projections, but this is just a simple, basic way that you can make a big difference in your Sung JM lineup. See how we now have Sepp Straka, Justin Su. You know, we're adding some lower owned pieces now. I almost always remove 6,500. There are some cheap golfers here at the very, very bottom that I actually have interest in this week because it is that kind of a tournament where everybody's a little bit in play. Chad Ramey, I'm going to have some pieces of. Austin Smotherman just got, he just withdrew from the tournament like 2 minutes ago while we were on air. That was an enjoyable experience. But Henrik Norlander, I'm going to have a little bit of. Hank Labiota, I don't like myself, but I'm going to click on that. There are some really, really bad players down here, but of course, Echo, that's going to be my boy, the Oklahoma State stud. Be excited for it. Looking forward to it. Check it out. That is Fantasy Cruncher. A little bit of a quick tutorial here for you this time around. And let's round out this show, shall we? We head over to DraftKings. Oh, look at that. We are going to build ourselves a single entry lineup here. Again, we're going to come in right under the 20-minute mark. We're going to get ourselves out of here. Oop. And you can find yourselves. Can you block that out in post? We'll find out in 2 seconds if we can. Producer Alicia on the case, but very much looking forward to having you guys check out PGA Live Before Lock. I'll be on that with Ben Raza on Wednesday night. Things will change between here and now, especially if weather changes, but I don't think that's very likely. Looks pretty nice. Lucky field here because when the wind blows, there are some big numbers that get shot, but pretty easy for me to start my build off here today with Shane Lowry. 10-4 for him, positive leverage. We saw him with the second highest optimal percentage. Kind of a no-brainer when you're intertwining the Top Golfers tool into your process. Pretty simple for me to want to just click on Shane Lowry and move along with my life. My next guy is going to be JT. Well, I want to go Min Woo Lee so bad, but JT Poston. Just routinely better ball striking. The driver has been really, really good. Hasn't had as good of a start to the season as what I would have liked, considering he seems to make my single entry lineups every single time. But I expect Svensson, coming off of last week, look at this, T9 at the Genesis. He's going to pull some ownership, but, you know, you saw the Farmers, the Phoenix Open, Genesis. These are far better fields. I totally get it, but I think I got to find a case to get away from that kind of a number. Getting over to JT Poston, going to be the way that I kind of prefer to start a lot of my single entry builds. Talked about it before, Sepp Straka. It's an uncomfortable click for sure based on some of the recent form, but won this tournament last season, has at least some game there. Some T10s have kind of been mixed into it, but we saw signs of life at the Genesis. Nothing super exciting, but once again, weak field, kind of find the ownership discounts. Now, I am very, very torn on this one because Garrick Higo is really not projecting out well for us at the moment, but I am starting to see some things in his ball striking that have me, I wouldn't say I'm over the moon about him by any means, but I want to say his driver has been so much better than what you would expect for a guy who's just been struggling for however long. Last year he had more missed cuts than made cuts, that's for sure. But he has now been positive off the tee in 5 straight. And one trend that I really, really like for this golf tournament is guys who can get the ball off the tee and just bomb it to a certain extent. And he's starting to move it a little bit. So Garrick Higo there at 8K, 5 straight weeks, positive with the driver, as well as some putting that has been really, really hit and miss. Still 11th at the American Express, 53rd at the Farmers, 20th at AT&T. The miscut at the Phoenix, I'm more than happy to just kind of write that over at the Waste Management because, once again, the putter, the only thing in his bag that didn't go well. He gained a shot off the tee with the approach, 1.6 around the green, which is huge for him because his around the green game has been a brutal thing since he won in 2021. So Garrick Higo, wanted to throw him out there as somebody that I find very, very interesting for a single entry build. And Davis Riley, I'm going to click on him too. Lots of golfers that sit sub 7K. I mean, Harry Higgs right there at 7K, but a number of players that you can kind of intertwine into this grouping. But talked about Davis Riley already. Hasn't been pretty, but you get away from the Farmers, the Phoenix Open, there's really no excuses. AT&T Pebble Beach, other than that golf tournament was wild, not an enjoyable experience for anybody involved. It was just stupid. But Davis Riley, sweet swing at Davis Riley. Let's get back on track this week in a weaker field. Think that he's a really interesting click at 7,400. Well, that'll do it for me, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out the PGA First Look. I'll be back next week. We'll be covering some serious golf as we start getting closer and closer to the Players Championship. We've got DK Rainmakers coming out. Might be talking a little bit in those streets. I know I'm going to be involved in those streets. That's for show. But check out Prize Picks. That is our sponsor. Use promo code Stokastic. And hey, I'll be back Wednesday, so you can make fun of me then for all of my picks here. But looking forward to this one. Hopefully you can intertwine some of the Cruncher, the Top Golfers tool, which I just am obsessed with. Alex, all the guys behind doing all of the data, they are just out of their minds. Awesemo himself doing such great stuff for us in that regard on the Top Golfers tool. Alrighty, y'all, I'm leaving. Until next time, I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the PGA streets this weekend.